An MFA thesis project initiated at Pratt Institute took the traditional ofrenda process of cast sugar skulls and kind of reconcocted into a new recipe. Here are some of the early molds that came out of the tests, followed by some products. And what was interesting in this approach is that there's an almost scientific method here in making sure that the dissolving, the dissolution of the actual product is timed and validated, verified. Same thing, we have a product that using that same recipe, which he freely makes available on his website, applied to a lighting fixture and a coat hook. Again, sort of batch production. Here we see Emiliano working through the creation of a more traditional piece of furniture, and again, the hallmark of very labor-intensive handwork. But what's interesting here is he's taking it up a notch by actually working with producers to create materials that he knows have sustainable production values, and also sustainable materials like the glue, the bindings, etc. Part of the next challenge for designers will involve the expansion of green products from small batch production and handcrafted objects using ready-made or recyclable materials into full-blown production of efficiently produced and obviously designed products. Designers are now struggling with how to bring sustainability into full-blown, mass-produced objects, which prompts the question, what does green really mean? And how do consumers understand it? Curiously enough, some of the same approaches exist for large-scale producers of products wishing to address reuse and efficiency, what I'm calling a cut-and-paste mentality. Nike's Trash Talk shoe, which was co-designed by Steve Nash, the NBA star, is quite an interesting case study. Nike noticed that there were lots of remnants from the production of their shoes that were simply going into the waste. And so pulling that material from the waste stream and rethinking it involved stitching together smaller sections to create the uppers of a shoe. Again, we're seeing a similar sort of language here between, say, this shoe, Trash Talk, and even Emiliano Godoy's piece of furniture. The labor intensiveness of trying to piece together small amounts of material into larger sheet goods is obviously a challenge, but one that many people are attempting to reconcile. The flip side of this green coin is what was known as greenwashing, which poses a real challenge to the role of industrial design. Greenwash even has an entry on Wikipedia. It's a highly contested term, and depending on where you get your information, it can change. It can be a very mild kind of term, and it can be construed as very radical. Organizations like Greenpeace can be very vigilant in their exploration of what they consider to be greenwashing, whereas other organizations can be very mild about it. So we see a lot of variability in even the term greenwashing. But nevertheless, there are a lot of people beginning to pay closer attention to products that pretend to be green that in fact aren't really green. And so we have things like the Climate Greenwash Awards from 2009. So we're seeing a community emerge that is becoming quite active and quite concerned about these issues. I want to turn now to an overview of the theory of product semantics, just to give a little bit of history. The term product semantics was first coined by Klaus Krippendorff and Reinhard Butter in their 1984 essay, Product Semantics, exploring the symbolic qualities of form, which really redefined the role of product design as, quote, the conscious creation of forms to serve human needs. The symbolic qualities of man-made forms in the context of their use and the application of this knowledge to industrial design. So it was really a kind of evolution from the more traditional form follows function equation to include social, technical, and cultural communications, as well as functional. Here we see one of the first products, which is considered designed under a product semantic kind of motivation, a product called the roller, designed by Philips. The roller was also the spark for a full-scale program called Moving Sound. The program was designed to capture the hearts and minds and lifelong loyalty of young people worldwide. And here we see the semantic working to suggest movement, to suggest outward play. It's a product that is not your grandfather's radio, but is in fact a radio intended to be the expression of, say, youth from the 1980s. Emotion was one of the hallmarks of product semantics because, as Don Norman says, beautiful objects work better, or at least people are willing to engage with products that are beautiful. So whether it's beauty or emotional resonance, it's something to better communicate with an end user. However, the issue of greenness is not just one of the product conveying its functionality or its attributes, be those social, cultural, or environmental. In fact, we're finding that the human brain itself often struggles with notions of greenness. So unfortunately, this issue of sustainable design is not always merely a matter of emotion, but also one of genetics and a long history of priming. So from an article run in the New York Times Magazine on the green brain, I have the following quote. Let's start with the fact that climate change is anthropogenic, Weber told me one morning in her Columbia office. More or less, people have agreed on that. That means it's caused by human behavior. That's not to say that engineering solutions aren't important, but if it's caused by human behavior, then the solution probably also lies in changing human behavior. So here we have this realization that design is a very, very complicated thing, and humans have a very sophisticated relationship to their objects. But we also have to remember that part of our primal makeup is to become attached to our stuff, because it represents who we are in a way. I like to use the example of children. Think of their beloved stuffed animals.